Let's talk a little bit of hoops. So Jalen Ledee didn't play the other night, and the Aztecs found a way to win. And it was, grasping victories from the jaws of defeat, like truly down 5 against UC Irvine inside of a minute to play. And I have no idea how they did it. It was an amazing final minute. Irvine played really well in the second half, shot over 50%. They held San Diego State without a field goal for like over 13 game minutes. And then all of a sudden, Reese Waters hits a three. Darion Trammell hits a three. Jay Powell has a huge offensive rebound. And Micah Parrish has a big shot against UC Irvine for a second consecutive season. And I know what people are going to say. Well, shouldn't they be beating Irvine by more than, 1 point and overcoming a deficit to beat them? And what about the Washington game where they overcame a 12-point deficit late, or Cal overcame a 12-point deficit late, or UCSD, it took until, put back at the buzzer to win? Yeah, but at the end of the day, the Aztecs are 8-2, and they've got good metrics, and they're in a good league, and they've got a chance to prop their resume in the league, even though it's not going to be an easy league to win. But you look at the top 5 or 6 right now in the Mountain West, and they're playing really good basketball with like San Diego State, New Mexico, Utah State, Boise State's coming off a huge win yesterday. UNLV just beat number 8 Creighton today. Like what? As they got a 2-time transfer eligible tonight because of that ruling that came down earlier today, and looked like a really good team. They ended up beating Creighton by 15 points. Colorado State obviously still in the top 25. Nevada has had an excellent start to the year. Mountain West has another really good shot to get 4 teams into the NCAA tournament, if not more. I mean, it's probably a stretch to say more because it's hard to do that, but even 4 is really impressive. They've had 4 teams in the NCAA tournament each of the last 2 years. If you can do that 3 consecutive years, it's just become, and has been at times, San Diego State's always been the class of the league, obviously. And there have been years where the Mountain West got 5 in. There was that one year when the league was 9 teams and 5 of the 9 were in the NCAA tournament. But then you had realignment and you had change in terms of the construction of the league, right? Utah, BYU, some of those changes. And then you had years where you get, 2 in. But recent seasons, the league has done work in the non-conference. I mean, picked up marquee wins. Colorado State over Creighton this year. You've got San Diego State, multiple Pac-12 wins, still opportunities coming up against Stanford and Gonzaga. You have UNLV tonight, what they did to Creighton, even though they've been disappointing this year. So, I mean, the league has done really well in the non-conference is my point. And also there's not, a plethora of teams that are dragging down the league that are like 350 in the net. Yeah, there's a team or 2 that are in that 200 range in the net, and you don't want to lose those games. And San Diego State has been able to avoid those, quad 4 losses in the history of the net, to their credit. But, you think about the top 5 or 6 in the league, and you got quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities all over the place. And I think if you win the games, it's a feather in your cap. And if you lose the games, you're not really hurting your resume. So you got to get Jalen Ledee back healthy. And they got this period of time now where they can get healthier and they can kind of work on themselves, right, and improving, where you have the 10 days off. You have St. Catherine on the 19th next Tuesday, and then you get Stanford on the 21st. I think here's the deal with Stanford. Stanford, from a metric perspective, at least the net, is way down there, but they're capable. They've given teams good games on neutral floors. They've lost some games, close games, but they're dangerous. It's one of those games that could really weigh you down metrically that you kind of have to find a way to win. And if you do that, you've avoided, any quote unquote, bad non-conference loss. And again, heading into the conference, there's not going to be a ton of water that you take on in the league based on how good the top of the league is. And you avoid, I think, going to Wyoming, which is a good thing. You avoid Air Force at home, which, by the way, is a good thing because their metrics aren't going to be high. So, out of the 18 league games, 8, 9, 10, 11 are going to be metrically really good. 5, 6, 7, you're going to have to navigate and find ways to win against teams that are way down in the metrics, but not crazy down like previous years where you got teams in the 300s. You got teams in the mid 100s, but not in the mid 300s, thankfully. And you don't have to win the regular season to get into the NCAA tournament. Now with the Mountain West this year. And it's going to be interesting to see how this team develops. Because Brian Dutcher's teams always improve every single year. His first 6 seasons, they've all gotten better in the second half of the year, without any exception. There's no exception to what I just said. So I think this team will continue to improve. It's still a challenging month with Stanford and Gonzaga, obviously. And then conference play begins against Fresno State at home, I want to say on January 3rd. So I think they They're finding out some things about their team, like Jay Powell. It was a little bit of like lose a battle, win a war. Of course, you want Jalen Ledee. He's like a All-American candidate, averaging 24 points and 10 rebounds. But it provided an opportunity the other night for us to see Jay Powell, and he really came into his own. And I'm so excited to see what Powell looks like in the days and weeks ahead. Miles Byrd, as he gets healthier, is going to be a big impact player for the Aztecs. Obviously Darian Trammell coming off the bench alone is a win because you know how much experience he has and what type of value he provides in general. So, again, are they the same team in terms of depth a year ago? Yeah, probably not. But then again, you go back to that 2020 team and they were not a deep team and their bench was like 300th in scoring in the nation and they went 30-2. And I'm not saying this team's going 30-2. But there's multiple ways to do it, is my point. A couple of years ago, you go 30-2, you get 10 points a night off the bench. Last year, you go, 36-7 or 32-7, and you're getting 30 points a night off your bench. And you basically have 9 starters with who was coming off the bench with like a Rope and Parrish and Seiko, right? But this team, I think, is building a bench because Powell is emerging. You clearly already hit 6 because you have Trammell, who's coming off your bench. You've got Powell. You've got Byrd. So, you have some things I think to like in there. I think you have something. You got Miles Hyde. You have DeMarcia Johnson Jr. So you're just trying to develop. You're just trying to develop and improve. And again, I don't think you have to have a 9-man rotation. I think you can certainly get by with an 8-man rotation, but there's going to be some nights on the road at elevation where you're going to have to play, you're going to have to play 8, and it's going to be hard to get, 36, 37, 38 minutes from starters. Brian Dutcher's talked about it. He says, we need to rely more heavily on the bench. We need to get more minutes out of the bench. We saw that the other night against UC Irvine. We'll see if that continues coming up here for the Aztecs in non-conference play. Let's see here. Let me just get to a few comments. Again, guys, appreciate you hanging out for the last hour. Really do. Please subscribe. Please tell someone about this because we got year-round content for Aztec fans in football and basketball season, outside of it. As things happen, like tonight, Danny O'Neil to the Aztecs, this is what the channel is for. So as news develops, recruiting news in football and basketball, wins, whatever, right? That's why we have this. So please subscribe, smash the like button if you wouldn't mind. Follow me on Twitter if you wouldn't mind, at John Schaefer. That's JONSCHAEFFER. If you want to get a few more comments in, I'll be here for another handful of minutes. Son's asleep, wife's away. So let's talk some Aztecs. Let's see. Journey, thank you. Says, do you see Powell playing the 4 spot and 5 to get more playing time now? I see him playing the 4, right? Because he's more of a stretch. And you look at his frame, he's not a 5, right? He's a stretch. And you see he causes some big time problems for the opposition defensively because he does a lot of things. He's a good ball handler. He can shoot. He hit a couple threes the other night. He's athletic. He can get to the rim. So he causes some mismatches. But defensively, I don't see him playing a lot of 5 just because of his size, right? Like his frame, his build. He's a 5th-year player. And it's just his build is, he's not, the biggest guy. He's more of a wiry frame. And I think that's worked to his advantage. You look at his numbers, second half last year. His numbers second half last year at Campbell were incredible. He was like the best player in the Big South last year in the second half of the year. Stanford will be good. And then in conference, look at the Utah State, Colorado State, Boise State, Nevada. Who am I missing? New Mexico. I mean, there's easy. I rattled off 5, 6. Those are 5, 6. The top half of the Mountain West and Stanford, I think, would all be great games to consider attending if you're an Aztecs fan. Greg wants to see Byrd get extended minutes next week. You can see how talented he is, but he needs minutes. Yeah, I think he needs to continue to practice because he's been banged up, and they haven't been able to consistently get him on the practice floor because of his hip. But as he gets that practice time, I think you'll see him continue to grow exponentially on the floor. You can see that raw ability, to your point. I think he had like 5 deflected passes defensively against UC Irvine. He's just a brilliant athlete. He really is, with an extremely high ceiling. Aztec fans should be excited about Miles Byrd based on what we've seen in bits and pieces here in 2023-24.